Hey everybody, welcome to Grimm's Forge Gaming. Today we are going to look at my Stamina Necromancer, and we are running a two-hander and then sword and board on the back bar. And you can run two-hander bow with this as well. Right now the sword and board's been working really well for us on that back bar. Let's jump right into the build and we'll show you what we are working with. This is an ult generation build, medium armor, and our first set right now, we've got two separate monster sets. This is kind of a theme that I've been working with recently on my light armor and medium armor builds. And we like mixing our two monster sets so that way we get that 2,871 armor, two separate ones of those. So we have over 5,000 additional resistances coming in just by mixing this up, and that's been working really well for us. It is a very tanky meta right now, and you've got people running around with 6 to 8k weapon damage. They're running Fury and New Moon together and things like that, and two-hand ulting you. And I really think that if you want to stay in the fight and you want to be relevant, you need to be somewhat bulky yourself. So anyways, we're mixing these two. If I had my choice, I would rather go heavy with this one, so that way we have our two heavy, and then the rest of our set is the mediums. The first five piece we are running is the Deadwater Guile, and the five piece on this is pretty interesting. When an enemy dies within 2 seconds of being damaged by you, you gain 5 ultimate. And this build has been working very well for CP, Imperial City, when I'm killing mobs, or just if I'm with a group of people, or just a buddy and we're running around. As things are dying, my ultimate is gaining very quickly, and so this is a pretty cool set. In BGs also, if you're in the mix and you're doing a lot of splash or AoE damage, whether you kill them or the other team kills them, you're still going to get that ultimate. And I think that's great considering the Necromancer's ultimates are pretty high cost. So anyways, Deadwater Guile. Second set that we are running is going to be the Champion of the Hist. And the Champion of the Hist is nice. It's got two max stam, and it's got weapon damage, and then the 5-piece gain minor heroism at all times while you're in combat, generating one ultimate every 1.5 seconds. This is nice. This plays into the whole ult gen theme, and along those lines too when we're talking about monster set. If you want to switch this out for Bloodspawn, go ahead. Bloodspawn would be what, 6,200 additional armor when it procs, and maybe it has 100% uptime for you. I didn't want to leave it to chance, and it has ult generation, so that's nice. So Bloodspawn is a viable option here as well, especially if that's a set you normally like to run with. But anyways, Champion of the Hist, it's important to know, is a heavy armor set. And so this armor setup that we're running currently can actually be switched around, and you could run Champion of the Hist heavy armor here, and then you would run your Deadwater Guile stuff here. So something else to know, I have been running this poison, and this poison works out really well. If you have not tried this poison, definitely give it a go. Drains the health from your target, dealing 1607 poison damage to your target and restoring 1266 health to you per second for roughly 4.5 seconds. And I can't I can't tell you enough how important this is. Feels um, it feels strong, and we're able to accomplish both putting pressure into the target and get heals, and that's a win. So I'm definitely liking this. Now, this build, we are unbuffed right now. We're going to look at the stats here. This build will push about 4k weapon damage. You very easily could hit 5k weapon damage by infusing the jewelry. Okay, and you will lose roughly 3k health, and you can see you could probably afford to lose 3k health on that. We're at 24,000, so in PvP we're going to be at 29,000 health. I kind of like being at 29,000 health as much as this guy is in the front line and in the mix of it, and it gives you a little bit more counter play as the 8K weapon damage onslaught lands on your head. And so I'm going to keep that right there, and I haven't had a problem killing people at 4K weapon damage when we're buffed up. Um, and so I'm just going to keep it right there, and that's that. But if you wanted to, infuse each one of these, and then you could not run a poison on your sword and board bar, and you would run a bow and make it have the weapon damage enchantment on there. And so you could get like an infused 450, 460 weapon damage from that, and then you would gain an extra almost 300, 400 from the infused jewelry. And so you could also run different monster sets if you wanted to check out Molokina right now. Molokina went from 20% cost increase down to only an 8% cost increase, and that might be a viable option for this build considering we're not running New Moon Acolyte. I doubt you want to put the New Moon Acolyte 5% cost increase on top of the Molokina 8%, but you could gain over 500 weapon damage from running Molokina on this set, another 400 right here, and then another 400 or 500 here. So maybe you're 5.5. You could probably push 5.5 on this build, so be a little less tanky. Anyways, that is the setup. Let's buff up and look at the stats here real quick. And so our two-handed bar, 1100 Magica recovery, stamina, 27,000, 23,000, and we will look on our sword and board bar here real quick, and we're at 32,000, almost 33,000 spell resistance, physical resistance 28,000. Our crit resistance low, but we have 3 items that we still need to transmute to impenetrable. And normally I like to be between the 1500 and 2500 on crit resistance, so we are a little low. However, we can pull that off okay on this build because of the damage mitigation. Let's look at our weapon damage here real quick. And so our weapon damage right now is 3,836, just under 4K, and we actually hit over 4K in BGs. 4,100 or so is what we're looking at, and continuous attack, things like that, I guess. But anyways, this build has been working out really well. CP, no CP, BGs, stuff like that. We are running stamina recovery, so I think that's been important, and we'll get this all the way up to between 17 and 1900. And that kind of seems to be the sweet spot where we could do work in BGs and down in the sewers, no problem. And the food that we are running is the smoked bear haunch, and that gives us our max health, and then magic and stamina recovery. I think that's pretty important. If we were to switch this to sugar skulls and gain max stats, our health would stay roughly about the same. This would go up 4 to 5k and put you at 32,000. You really don't need the Magicka on this build, so 10k or so is fine, but 15k, I noticed that, especially watching the video, that my Magicka pool was full most of the time, and so I think that this is a fine max stat area to be at. Anyways, let's look at the abilities. We're going to jump into them unbuffed here. Pretty basic setup for a Stamcro, for Stamina Necromancer. We've got our Gap Closer, Crit Rush, and it deals 50% more damage with the farther distance you travel, and our Dizzy Swing, and this is our new and improved Dizzy Swing. Hitting an enemy that is already off balance stuns them for 2 seconds. That's great. And targets that are immune to off balance are snared for 40%. So I think that Dizzy Swing needed this buff, or needed this change for sure, so this is welcomed. It's already hard enough to line up Dizzy Swing with a 0.8 second cast time, and so we needed to have some type of reward for that risk, I guess, of trying to make this your spammable. And reverse slice, I like the splash damage from reverse slice. I very rarely run the other execute morph. I just like the splash damage. And then we're running our blighted blast bones, and this hits very hard and applies major defile. And so as we engage somebody in a fight, we'll make sure that we get this up. And this is really good when you're in a large fight, a large scrum, and there's a bunch of people, because of the AoE explosion that comes from this and applies major defile to everyone. So a common play is to get this up before I engage, and then gap close into the group, and then start executing as this explodes. And we'll probably get some people, or if nothing else, apply a lot of pressure to people. We're running Rally for the burst heal, and this is really nice on the build. And we are running Pestilent Colossus. This has a really nice tooltip on it, even unbuffed. And the most important thing from this is it applies major vulnerability. So the targets take 30% increased damage, and there's not a lot of abilities in the game that apply this major vulnerability, and this is one of them. Also, if you look at the ultimate cost at 225, it's a pretty high ultimate cost when you're looking at what Onslaught would cost you to use it, or Berserk Strike at 150. You could get this off a lot more. Even the base Berserker Strike is 12,508, and it does splash damage and gives you pen against people. But anyways, I'm really liking this, and the fact that we're an ult gen build makes this easier, more viable. This is up a lot. It's up all the time, and I can use this a lot. And if I ever get in trouble, I will use my other ultimate. But if we were not running an ult gen build and we were running something else, I would run this just because it's a cheaper ultimate. It still has splash damage and has a really nice tooltip on it. So food for thought. Ult gen, gonna run this, and if we weren't ult gen, we'd run that. On our back bar, this is our sword and board bar. We're running Mortal Coil, and Mortal Coil is really nice. So it's a free ability, which is great, and this is unbuffed right now. It's just under 15,000 health over 12 seconds, and so basically it's a really tiny hot. It doesn't tick every second. It's got a lot quicker uptime than every second, and so you're just going to see a whole bunch of really small hots coming in while this coil is intact. And this has been really nice. The next ability is Spirit Guardian, and this Spirit Guardian heals me. Also, it negates, or it has a 10% flat damage mitigation to it, and that's good to know. Also, going back to this, while slotted, your healing done is increased by 3%. And I want to make sure that I have that up. Not that it's 3% is a deal breaker if I don't have it up when I'm using my heals, but just by having this up, obviously we're getting 3% more heals. Next ability we're running is Dead in Pain. This is kind of a flex spot because we do not have a CC in this outside of the changes to Dizzy Swing. And with some of the really tanky targets, you just simply need to line up your CC to get them, and line up your burst with the CC and go. And so I will run into that problem, and what I'm hoping is that I can just put enough pressure into them and get the defile on them, and then we're going to drop Pestilence on them and the Pestilent Colossus, and we'll get them then. There are some tanky targets that even the amount of damage and the disease damage and this and everything isn't going to get them. And to be honest, those are the guys that just move on to someone else. Like, if they want to run around and be ultra tanky and unkillable, that's great. We're here to kill people and not waste our time trying to beat our head against the wall against the ultra tanky guy. But if you needed to add ACC to the class, I would drop I would do the Agony totem. And the reason I would do the totem here, so there's a slight problem with the totem in that it takes 2 seconds for the wind up on it. So if I were to drop it, they're not going to get CC'd immediately. However, um, you get minor protection to you and your allies while you're standing in it, and so you're taking 8% less damage. Now that won't mean much to a warden, or some, if a warden was on your team or anyone that has that buff, but for me it means something. So if I were to, like with a Templar, you'll drop your defensive rune, you'll drop your cleansing ritual, and kind of build your house. That's the house you're going to fight in. This is kind of your necro house. You'll drop your agony totem and try and fight within that area. Anybody that does not have CC immunity that comes in will be feared. Everyone that comes in at the bottom of this, if you read it, um, allies can activate a pure agony, causing enemies to take 7,400 magic damage over 5 seconds and apply minor vulnerability to them, increasing their damage taken by 8%. And so that's kind of the double whammy, is if you've got teammates that are activating that synergy, and then you're also getting the major vulnerability from this, that's a lot of additional damage coming in on that target. So if I were to flex this out, I would end up putting Agony Totem there as my CC. But right now we are running Deadening Pain. Deadening Pain is really nice because you get 2 ultimate when you cast this ability, and we are an ult gen build, and that's great. I think another thing too, let me look and see where this is. Dun, dun. Sorry, I should have had this figured out just before. There you go. When you use an ability on a corpse, you generate 10 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 16 seconds. And so that's important to know, because it doesn't say that this is relegated just to your living death skill tree. So when you use an ability on a corpse, you generate 10 ultimate. Okay, great. So when I look at this, I'm using this ability on corpses, and the ability itself generates ultimate as well. So we get heals coming in from this, and then the more corpses that are on the ground, the duration is longer too. And so that's important to know. Also, while you have the heal effect, you gain major protection, reducing the damage you take by 30%, and this scales off your max health. And that's another reason why being at 29k health on a medium armor 4k weapon damage is pretty nice. This is going to give me ultimate, it's going to heal me, it has 0 cost, and it's going to give me major protection. Also there at the bottom, while slotted, your damage taken is reduced by 3%. So this ability by itself is a free ability, and it has a 33% damage mitigation built into it. And so when we look at our damage mitigation, we have 10% damage mitigation here, 33% damage mitigation here. And so that's our 43% damage mitigation. And it's definitely noticeable. When you have both these up and going, you are stout. So we're running Resolving Vigor unbuffed right now. We've got just under 14k health over 4 seconds, and that's good. The cost on it isn't too bad. And for a while I was trying to run either this or that, one or the other, and I think I was watching another video and it just kind of clicked. I was watching someone's video and they were running both of them, and I was like, you know what, I need to do whatever I have to free up bar space to run both of these simultaneously. And so if you look at it, all 4 of these abilities are healing me. I've got a large amount of health, 14, 15k health coming in from that. I've got 14, 15k health when this is buffed coming in from that. I got passive heals coming in from this, damage mitigation ultimate, and damage mitigation and heals coming in from that. That's a really strong healing kit. Really strong healing kit. And then you add the damage mitigation on top of it. I was very impressed with this. And then if you run over here, we have our old faithful rally, the burst heal. And so um, you take that really strong healing kit, you add a rally burst heal on it, and you're going to need to keep this uptime anyways for your um, major brutality for your weapon damage. So, and we are running beckoning armor. I'd have to say, as far as CCs go, this is my this isn't a CC, but it gives people CC immunity, and so that's important to know. However, the thing I really like about this ability is if you're a Nightblade and you're a bow Nightblade guy and you think that you're going to stand back and put lethal arrows into me, this is going to yank you to me, and then I'm going to just try and keep the pressure on you. And so I really like beckoning armor for that. No free pot shots. You don't get to stand out and take shots at me. My armor's going to pull you to me and drag you into the mix. So a nice little synergy with this is if you decide to go with the Agony Totem, your armor's going to pull them in, and if you can activate the synergy in that time frame or whatever, they're going to get that minor vulnerability if you drop the Agony Totem there. So fun little synergy when you're running Totem. My other ability here is going to be Ravenous Goliath, and when you're in this, you're not unkillable, but you're really hard to kill. And so I think in the video there was a guy putting some pressure into me, really good stamina ward, and anyways, you know, even with all my heals going and stuff, their shocks or whatever, and their dizzy swing, and their two-hand ultimate onslaught, and they had the penetration against me. They really lined up their burst well, and they might have been running the New Moons and Fury too, so who knows. I really felt the pressure, and so I just hit this, and they run away. They're like, I'm not going to kill the guy when he's in that, and the likelihood that he's going to kill me when he's in that is really high, so I'm out of here. And so because this is an alt gen build, you will regularly have enough ultimate to get this 250 ultimate Ravenous Goliath. And uh, honestly, you don't have to drop your Pestilent Colossus every chance you get just to apply that major vulnerability. If you wanted to switch these two ultimates around and put Ravenous Goliath on your two-hand bar and just be the ultimate crowd bully, you could do that, and it would be a lot of fun. I might actually try that now talking about it, because when you're in Bone Goliath, you feel like Incredible Hulk, you know, Hulk smash. So anyways, that's our abilities here. Let's buff up. We're going to look at these real quick. And just under 6k on the crit resistance, 1100 dizzy swing, just under 5k on a reverse slice, 15,000 on our blighted blast bones. Real big tooltip there on our Colossus, and I'm gonna look on just kind of see what our tooltips on our heals are. Yeah, 16k, 15 coming in, and 15k on that. So we got a higher tooltip on this over a longer duration though. So anyways, that is the build and the abilities, and we will jump into CP here real quick and just kind of see what we are running on this guy. Nothing in the Apprentice, and when you go over to the Atronach, we've got 60 into Mastered Arms. And if you're down in Imperial City doing CP stuff, obviously your champion points comes into play. For your BGs and battle and duels, CP is a no-go, but this is if you're running around the sewer CP or Cyrodiil. Mastered Arms for me, it's your direct damage. So my Blighted Blast Bones, my Dizzy Swing, Crit Charge, every ability that I run is going to be affected by this. And 60 is my personal soft cap. I do go over that occasionally with builds, but I like to just stay around at 60 because as soon as you start putting more points than 60 into a field, diminishing returns or diminishing gains start stacking up. As an example, if you look at this, we are at 20, just under 21%. This goes up to a maximum of 25%. So if I were to drop 40 more points into this to get it to 100, it would only take me to 25%. So I'm only adding 4% more over the next 40 points put into that. And it's for that reason that I just think that let's just stop at 60. Let's spread the points around. Physical weapon expert, I've got 50 into that, and that increases our light and heavy attacks by 26.25%. That's pretty hefty. And then I have 10 into shattering blows and increase your damage done to enemies with a damage shield. So there's a lot of shields in the game, and so we want to do a little bit of damage to them. We are not running shield breaker. I have 60 into Mighty because physical, poison, and disease, and we do all those, so we might as well do 12%, 13% more of it. And I got 50 into critical damage and critical healing, and that gets us at 18%. Piercing, we definitely want to go with that physical penetration. If we were running the two-hand onslaught, I might actually even take this out. And or take some of it out and go here because we're getting penetration from onslaught, but because we're not running onslaught and we're running the colossus and the bone giant or whatever, we need that physical penetration. Plus, like we said, tanky meta, so we need the penetration to chop some of these trees down. Ironclad, I've got 60 in there, it's my cap, and all the biggest damage abilities in the game are usually going to be direct damage. At least the ones that are going to chunk off a large amount of your health quickly are considered direct damage, and so we're going to take almost 21% less damage with that. I've got 60 into spell shield, that's an extra 4400 spell resistance, and 25 into hardy, so we're cutting our physical, poison, disease damage by 6% received, and the same for our elemental defender, so magic, flame, frost, shock, cutting that. 60 into heavy armor focus, our physical resistances increased by 4400, and then 40 into quick recovery, so that way we have roughly 10% more healing coming in. 30 into Warlord, we are going to be CC'd and we will have to break free, so because we spend all our time in PvP. 60 into Mooncalf, 20 in Arcanus. I could probably afford to take this out and put it into Tenacity. Like I said, the only time that I would want to consider keeping this is if we do drop Dead in Pain. It's a free ability, and we were to put Agony Totem there. Agony Totem costs Magicka, and I think it's like 4k Magicka, and so this would come into play. But for now, we'll just leave it as is. And then we have 60 into Health Recovery. We're not a vampire, and we'll go through all that stuff here as soon as we're done here. But extra Health Recovery makes you feel a little extra tanky in Battlegrounds. So, and we've got 60 into Tumbling. I don't spend a lot of time blocking, but 60 into Tumbling to get out of problems, and we'll block cast our healing when we have to. So we don't want to burn our stamina pool while we're block casting our heals on our back bar. So that is everything there. Let's jump into this real quick. Obviously, always, no matter what build, get all your class passives for the most part. And we are two-hand, so get all your two-hand passives, and we're sword and board, get all your sword and board passives. And we are a medium build, so normally, I'll pick this up later, but I don't do a whole lot of sneaking. Pick up all your medium armor passives, and then for your heavy armor, you're only going to need the first 3 because we're 5 heavy, 2 light. Well, on this build, we're 6. We are 5 medium, 5 medium, and we want to be 2 heavy. But anyways, when you're 5 medium, that's where that comes into play. This is how we're able to push such high weapon damage too. This passive's great. So these only apply if you've got 5 or more heavy armor. So we are not a vampire, like I said, and we're still working on things. I very rarely do dungeons with this guy. I'm PvP almost exclusively. So, and we are an orc. And orc seems to work out really well. Your swift warrior, you get an extra 258 weapon damage there, so that's great. And some max health here, and then when you deal damage with a weapon ability, you heal for 600, which can occur every 4 seconds. So we got passive heals kind of coming, racial heals, I guess, coming in from our dizzy swing and gap closers, which are weapon abilities, so that's great. And then we've got extra max stamina. So um, and that is the build. Check out the video we did. I basically just switch this armor setup that we went through today works great on a stamina DK as well. I actually have a video out where I was using the same setup on my Stam DK old generation build, and so the battle roar passives work out. And I might move this setup around on different builds and test it out and see how it works. But anyways, the video that we just released yesterday, it was a short BG. And it was my first time ever running this build, and also the first BG after Harrow Storm has come out, and so I wanted to jump in and kind of see, what's performance like and stuff like that. So anyways, we'll get some more builds of this coming out. Coming down the pipe right now, we have a Magicka DK burst build, and we're running some unique setups. And I also have a Magicka Necromancer that I just got to CP and geared, and he is super strong. So we'll get both those videos out and going. If you have a preference on one of those, leave comments. Please like and subscribe, and have a great day.